Hello. Just wanted to share with you a little bit about making dressing. A lot of people ask me about my dressing because I am a fabulous dressing maker, so I've been told. But seriously though, I think I do make a really good dressing. I make my grandmother's dressing, Miss Ann Carte. I lived with her my whole life and watched her make dressing her entire life, and she had some of the best dressing anybody could ever taste. And so I've learned to duplicate that recipe as best I can and made it my own. So just want to share with you how to make a really good dressing, and I hope this will help a lot of people. I'm going to give you some of my secret tips as to how to do this. So first of all, to make dressing, it starts with prepping days in advance. Today, like I said, is Tuesday, 2 days before Thanksgiving. So you want to start at least 2 days before Thanksgiving. You can start it, you could have started this 3-4 days before Thanksgiving. So you have some basic things that you have to do. So I'm going to show you that first. First of all, main ingredients for me will be fresh cornbread. And I have my fresh cornbread baking in the oven, and I'll show you that later, and we'll go through a little bit later how to actually assemble it. But you have some basic things, and my secret to making good dressing is, once again, fresh cornbread. I ain't got nothing to do with what everybody else say about some stale cornbread, some stale bread. That's not how I do it. That's not how Mama did it. So cornbread is cooking. I do have a little bit of leftover cornbread I'm going to be using, simply because about a week or so ago I had made some broccoli cornbread. So I am going to put this in there. What about day old bread? What about all that old breadcrumbs and all that stuff? Well, that's not necessary either. I'm just telling you what I know. I make it all the time. You can put breadcrumbs in there, day old bread, whatever you want to do. The only thing that I use sometimes would be this. And this is some stovetop stuffing mix. And there's a big difference, first of all, between dressing and stuffing. I don't make stuffing, don't know anything about it. Those of you who do, more power to you. I love you, enjoy it. But I make dressing. And so to bind it together, or to extend it a little bit, I guess you would say, I'll add some of this sometime. A lot of times I'll make my dressing with nothing more than my fresh cornbread, and to me fresh cornbread makes the best dressing. I like the way it tastes. But to extend it, I will put this in here. Now mind you, this says herb seasoned cornbread. Be careful with the amount of salt that you're adding. There will be salt in here if you're using this. And this is the easiest way for me to go. Once again, it's already flavored, okay? So that's your stuffing mix. Now, what do you want to make ahead of time? Now, you got to have some good broth. So to have good broth, I like fresh broth from a hen. You can get it from a hen. You can get it from turkey necks. You can get it from chicken wings, turkey wings, leg quarters, turkey tails, whatever you want. Fresh broth is essential in making a great dressing. I don't want to even discuss that with you. Yes, I have some canned broth here. So why do I say that? Because I'm going to make my fresh broth days in advance from my hen. I prefer hen broth. Hen will give you the best dressing broth by far than anything else. So go ahead and get you a hen, put it in the crock pot, or boil it however you want to. It's going to make a lot of broth. Now, what do you do with the hen? I like to put it in the crock pot. It breaks down. It makes the dark meat very soft. I take the breast of the hen. Don't use it for anything more than making hen salad, or what I would call chicken salad. But it's hen salad. So I take that breast, make me some delicious hen salad, put it in the refrigerator. Time is done. Make that, put it away, and I can eat that later as a sandwich or on the side with a salad. And if you want to eat your hen, it's going to be nice and soft if you put it in the crock pot. You can eat your hen and dressing. A lot of people don't like turkey. If you don't like turkey, fine. Don't eat the turkey. I'm not a big fan of turkey for Thanksgiving because we usually have a lot of it left over. And that'll be another show. I'll talk to you about what to do with all that leftover turkey. And there is a lot you can do with it. So we have our broth here. This is some broth that was made from the hen. We made this in advance. This can be frozen, so you can refrigerate it or freeze it. But here's your broth. And if you look, it has quite a bit of fat on the top. I will be using some of that fat in the dressing, but I'll be discarding a lot of that as well. Had also cooked some a few days ago. Well, not a few days ago, actually about 2 weeks ago. So this is some more broth that I made from some chicken I made. So I'm going to be mixing hen and chicken broth together here because I have a lot to make. Now, and I do thank my mother, Miss Annie Mae Hall, for helping me out with a lot of this because I have a broken foot right now and I can't do a lot. So here, we've also done ahead of time our celery and our onions. we chopped these up and we froze these. These can be done ahead of time, and you're gonna take these out, unthaw them, or just take them out of the refrigerator. It doesn't matter whether you're gonna be cooking them. They have to be cooked, okay? All right, so what else? I'm gonna give you my secret ingredient, and here it is. It is a can of cream of soup. It can be a can of cream of mushroom, it can be a can of cream of chicken, or it can be a can of cream of celery. Really doesn't matter. I prefer the cream of celery because you're going to be putting celery in there and it adds a nice flavor. Really doesn't matter, but that is the secret ingredient, and everybody won't tell you that, so know that. Just going to add a nice creaminess to your dressing once it's done. The chicken broth. I always buy extra chicken broth just in case I make too much and I run out of broth. I'm going to supplement it with that chicken broth. But I have so much good fresh broth here, you're not going to taste that canned broth. Now, if you have to make dressing with canned broth and you don't get a chance to do that, fine, go ahead and do that. But I would still say go ahead and make yourself some fresh cornbread to go along with that canned chicken broth. And if you're only using canned chicken broth, I want you to go ahead and heavily season it with your herbs, not salt, but pepper, sage, Italian seasoning. This is another one of my secret ingredient is the poultry seasoning. Poultry seasoning has a lot of different seasonings in here, and if I can look and find, it has rosemary, oregano, sage, ginger, marjoram, thyme, and pepper already in here. This is the brand I prefer, Bell's, if you can find it. If you can't, find another brand. McCormick's makes it. Also, I found a brand at Kroger for like $1.50 called Psst. If you've seen that brand at Kroger, it's called Psst, PSS, $1.20. That's going to add a lot of flavor to your dressing. And I think that's about all we're going to go over. Of course, we'll put salt and pepper. Salt will be the last thing we add in our dressing once it's mixed up, because we don't know if salt has been put in our broth or where salt may be coming from with the canned cream of soups. So that's part one of prepping. And once again, you can prep this days in advance. I'm going to come back to you shortly, and we're going to put our dressing together. I'm going to show you how it should look before you cook it, okay? And we're also going to put our dressing in the refrigerator overnight to let all these flavors marinate. We're going to mix up everything we need except for our eggs in our final dressing, and we'll put that in the refrigerator the night before, bring it out the day of Thanksgiving, and cook it. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this portion of making dressing, and you too can make this dressing. I'm going to hang with you and show you how to do it, okay? Thank you. All right, so we're back to the part where we're going to actually cook our celery and onions. And you have a lot of different options with the celery and onions. You can put them in the food processor, you can chop them by hand ahead of time. But we've already done that, so here are our onions. And what I have in here is just some of the grease from the canned broth that I put in here with a little bit of the broth just to cook it in, because I want to savor all of that flavor. So there's our onions. Oh no, Panda, stop the madness. Some things you can't control, and that's Panda in the background, so oh well, we'll have to go with that. And if you've seen it in my videos, you know that Panda is there, okay? So we'll just let that go. So we're gonna turn our celery and onion up pretty high. And we'll ignore Panda. Panda, come here, Panda. Come here, Panda. Panda, come here. Come here, Panda. Well, Panda, come here, Panda. Sit, stay. Panda, stay. So Panda's not allowed in the kitchen. So this is how you start with your celery and onions. And I'm just gonna put them in here and let them cook. Okay, so that's all you have to do. All right. So it's going to be a while. We're going to cook them very slowly. I have them on high now just to get a little bit of the water out, but we're going to cook them very slowly. And I'll let them simmer probably for maybe about 45 minutes to an hour. It doesn't really matter, but you don't want to overcook them, all right? And so we'll come back to this as well. All right, so I'm back again with part two of making the dressing. We've already prepped everything. We've made our cornbread, as you can see here. Here's the cornbread. That's the main thing I had to get done. I've also kind of fried off or cooked off or sauteed off, whatever you want to call it, the onions and the celery, so they're ready to go. So now we're going to show you how to actually put together the dressing after you've done all the prep work. So I have two bowls here simply because I know I'm going to be making quite a bit of dressing. I have 2 pans of dressing. I have one small square pan of dressing, of cornbread. just cornbread that I've made from basically some cornmeal mix. I always make my cornbread from cornmeal mix, just using the White Lily or the Aunt Jemima, whatever brand of cornmeal mix you want to use. It just does not need to have sugar in it. If you can make cornbread from the box if you want to, just does not need to have sugar in it. You can buy cornbread from the grocery store as well. It's going to cost you quite a bit from the grocery store to get enough, but it too does not need to have any sugar in it. Sugar does not belong in the dressing. And here's the other pan of the cornbread. So I have two pans here. So don't mind that little piece that's missing there, because you always have to test what you made, and as a cook I had to test it with a little butter, some hot buttered cornbread. So I'm going to go ahead now and get the cornbread out, and we're going to start our mixing, okay? So I'm just kind of cutting it up into pieces here quickly, just to make it a little bit easier for me to get out of the pan and to get mixed up. So I'm just taking the cornbread out. Doesn't it look delicious? So yeah, you see why I ate that little piece, huh? This is going to be a lot of cornbread. Probably going to have quite a bit left over. I know that's already enough for that one. So we're going to continue putting it in here. Take those crumbs as well. Get those out of there. Put that away. All right, and so I'm going to continue on with the rest of my cornbread. And as I said, this may be too much for that pan. Let me look and see. Yeah, that's quite a bit. So I'm just going to start now, I think, with probably half of this pan here. Go ahead and get that in there. And once again, I probably won't even use the stuffing mix if I don't need to, depending on how much broth I have, okay? So I think that's probably enough cornbread. I believe it is. It's pushing it actually a bit to me, so we'll get that out of the way. Get our cornbread out of the way. Okay, so the next thing we want to do at this point is, I like to go ahead and chop it up some more. And there are a lot of different ways of getting this done, you know, but you want to get it in smaller pieces. I'm just using the knife I had to cut it, avoiding my fingers, of course, okay? So however you can get that done. Some pieces may be a little bit harder than others, and that's just fine. We're going to be using a lot of broth, so the broth will soak up all that crispiness. I like for my dressing to be quite smooth, so I use quite a bit of broth. And you could go ahead and go in here at this point, break it up with your fingers. Just fine. This is actually quicker to do. I was trying to be very refined, but this is very easy. I'm just going in here and breaking up those, especially those crunchy end pieces. And look how quickly that happened. I'll go over here, do the same thing to this one. Get that. My hands are clean. And speaking of cleanliness, when you're cooking, especially for Thanksgiving, make sure you're being very clean. Make sure you're properly washing your hands. Make sure you're properly storing your food at the proper temperature. We're not going to be leaving anything out all day. So if you're serving dinner at 1 or 2 o'clock, that dinner on Thanksgiving Day shouldn't sit out there all day long. So go ahead and eat and then put that away so we don't make anybody sick, because you may be having people taking plates home with them. So you don't want that to sit out there 5 or 6 hours and then somebody make a plate, travel home with it, maybe sit it around for a little while longer if they go to somebody else's house. So let's make sure we're being very safe and not making anybody sick. Okay, with that being said, we've gotten that done. All right, that's all about cornbread. And if I need to add some more cornbread here a little bit later, I will. So here are our onions. We've gotten the onions and celery cooked off. Remember we started that? As you can see, they're cooked down quite a bit. I like to cook them down and I use the broth and some of the grease or the rendering from the hen that I had that was on top of that to cook it in, so I didn't lose any flavor. And so you want to basically cook these down until they taste a little sweet. You want to get rid of the bitterness from the celery especially, and then start to take on a little sweet flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and divide these up. And I'm sorry guys, because I don't really measure a lot of stuff, because this kind of thing really doesn't require a lot of measuring. You know, the main thing is when you're at the end that it's pretty soupy and you have enough broth. So I'm not really measuring here too much. And we want to get all of that good stuff out. And you can, can't hear me talking over me scraping, huh? So let me stop scraping here. Okay, so we got that in. We'll put that away. So I'm going to go ahead and start to incorporate this in. And if you're finding that you're running a little short on celery and onion, you can of course use celery, not salt, but if you can get some celery, you know, powdered or celery dried in any form, you can use that. You can definitely use the dried onions that you get in the you know, in the little jars. You can use some of that. You can rehydrate them or just toss them in there right as they are. You could also add a little onion powder if you need it. But the best way to do this is to do everything nice and fresh from scratch. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. I've got my celery and onions incorporated, and I'm working fast. This doesn't take a long time to do. Okay, if you have everything prepped up, ready to go. And at this point, I'm gonna tell you, I love to try and just take a little piece of this here. Just taste a little piece of this. Make sure it's okay as cooked. Cornbread with a little bit of celery and onion, that little greasy flavor. I know I'm on the right track now. So it's starting to make me think we're almost getting to dressing. Now, next thing we want to do is go ahead and add in our broth. And this broth is a little gelatinous because it came out of the refrigerator, but that's okay because we're going to be putting it back in the refrigerator to let it sit overnight. So it doesn't matter. And I'm getting all this good stuff out of here that it was cooked down with. That looks like some pepper and stuff in here. So I'm going to make sure I get all of that. Okay. So that's done. So now we want to start to incorporate, and I'm going to switch up spoons here. So now I'm going to start to incorporate my broth into my cornbread and my celery and onions. And thus far, that's all we've done. I haven't added anything else. And it's starting to look like dressing should look. This is what it should look like, okay? So, at this point, you haven't done a lot of work. You've done a lot of prep work. You've cooked your cornbread, you've made your broth, you've made your celery, and you made your onion. So this is the easy part. It's pretty much easy going at this point, all right? So you can think about getting cute and all that stuff and getting ready for Thanksgiving and what you're gonna wear, because for me, the dressing is the centerpiece of Thanksgiving for me. Because good dressing sets everything off, and it doesn't matter whether or not you have turkey, whether you have hen, whether you have duck, Cornish hens, whatever the meat you're having, you want to make sure that dressing is right. And I'm going to get you right. This is the other dressing, remember I said I had, so I'm going to add some more because this is a little dry. This isn't how I want it to look because it's going to have to soak up quite a bit. So I'm adding in the rest of my my broth I had here. I'm getting all of that out. That's a little fat on top, but that's fine. I like the fat, it adds flavor. All right, and so that's done. So I'm gonna start mixing again. So you see it's still a little loose, and I want it to be loose. I want to get all of these pieces incorporated in there. I don't want any big pieces left. This should be smooth. When I finish, it should be very smooth. This one is looking the way it should. This is how I want it to look. When I put it in the refrigerator overnight to let it absorb these flavors, this is what I want it to look like. This one is still a little dry, so I can tell you I'm gonna have to add some more broth to that. So I'm out of my broth, right? I used all the broth I had. So what do I have here? Remember I told you, I said I'll make sure, just in case I needed some more broth, I have canned broth. Cheating a little bit. This is your supplement. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my canned chicken broth here. This was very inexpensive. This time of year, you can find it $2 for $1 or $3 for $1. But because we have so much of our good rich hen and turkey tail broth in here, it's fine. This is just gonna add some moisture to it. Just a little bit there, but we needed quite a bit in here. All right, so you see what we've done. Now you see that's getting to the texture of this one. All right, mix that up a little bit. Now, remember I told you we're gonna add the secret ingredient. Don't tell anybody this. This is just between me and you. This is the secret ingredient, a can of cream of soup. Now, I will tell you, these are two different brands. The main thing is it tastes good. I've seen cream of soups that are actually liquid. That's fine too. I prefer certain brands, and I'm not gonna endorse any brands, but I prefer certain brands. So One is cream of mushroom, one is cream of celery, and one is cream of chicken. Which do you use? It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. You can go 1, 2, 3, shuffle them, grab them, or whatever, and that's fine. I do prefer cream of celery, though, I'll be honest with you. Just a little bit more than the rest of them, the cream of celery. So we'll start with our cream of celery soup. And I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And you know what? I'm going to end up opening another can because this large one here, this large bowl, really needs its own can. So I'm going to do that one. So then I'm going to take another can out. And which do I use? Cream of mushroom or cream of chicken? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go with cream of chicken. Why not? Okay, so here's our can of cream of chicken. And I love to eat cream of chicken soup, actually, myself on its own. So I'm going to add that. And it all came out. And I'm going to add just a little bit more in here. I really didn't mean to put it all in this bowl. I'm going to take just a little bit of that out and add it here. Okay, so I'm going to add in my cream of soups. Get that incorporated in very well, you know. This is exercise too. My arm is tired of stirring. Oops, I'm making a mess now too. Turn my little Christmas tree back around. Okay, and I'm going to go over here and mix this one up as well. All right, and basically, guys, we've got our dressing mixed up. All we have to do is put a little seasoning in here. You want to taste it to see if you need salt and how much salt you need. I always add pepper. Always add pepper, okay? The better quality your pepper, the better. I like fresh ground cracked pepper that you grind out of the pepper mill. Don't have one today, guys, so oh well. Doesn't matter, just make sure you get some pepper in there. But I don't really like the fine pepper, but this is a very fine pepper. But oh well, we're gonna use what we have today. And it's probably gonna make me sneeze. And as you can see, I go a little heavy on the pepper. You could also use white pepper, which will be, it won't be as aggressive. You won't taste the white pepper as much as you will the black pepper, okay? And I'm gonna taste this and see what it tastes like. But because I know I have a lot of flavor already in my dressing, I don't need to add that much flavor. If I had been using all canned chicken broth, I would go heavier on all of the herbs, including some Italian seasoning. And this is nice to add just a little bit of Italian seasoning. You don't have to. I like it. Also, we have sage here. I'm not going to use the sage because I have my Bell's poultry seasoning mix, and it already has that in it. And I'm sorry, guys, like I said, that I don't measure. But I want you to learn how to cook if you learn to cook from me the old-fashioned way. Cook it and taste. Taste and cook. Cook and taste. You want to taste as you go to see what the flavor tastes like, and make it your own. There's no right or wrong way to make dressing. You just make it the way you like it. It's just a few ingredients. Now, the only thing that we're not going to add to our dressing today will be what? The eggs. We're going to take this and we're going to put it in the refrigerator. And I actually will add a little bit more broth to this because, like I said, I know that the bread is going to soak up a lot of the broth and it's going to get tighter. And I want it to stay loose. And so when we come back to make this tomorrow, or in our case, Thursday morning, we're going to let this actually sit in the refrigerator 2 days. And I've never let it sit for 2 days, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to hurt it. You could also freeze this. If you wanted to freeze this for later, you could. And now, how much dressing is this going to make? Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Let me show you what I'm going to be fixing mine in. I have 2 of these, just silver pans. You can put it in a very nice pan, but because I'm going someplace, I'm using silver pans. And I'm going to also make some in this small pan. There are 3 of these for my cousin. He loves my dressing and wants to take some home. I could even put this in here and freeze this and not cook it and let him cook this off himself. All he would have to do would add eggs, or I could put it in this, cook it, and it could still be frozen. So you have options here. Make ahead. You can save some of this for Christmas if you wanted to have have it for Christmas or New Year's. You can save some of this and freeze it. You could use half of this for now and take the other half and use it for later. So this is part 2, and during part 3, all you have to do is take it out of the refrigerator, add the eggs, and cook it. And I'm also going to taste and see if I need to add salt or more seasonings before I actually cook it, okay? So hang in there. You too can make dressing, all right? Thank you. Hello. Just finishing up Thanksgiving dinner. Just wanted to check back in one more time. And you know this has been like a 3-day process, but you could do all this in one day if you really wanted to work terribly hard. So the dressing, these are the same 2 that I had, and I put them in the refrigerator actually for 2 days. I normally do it overnight, but that's fine. And so the only thing I haven't added right now would be the eggs. So we're gonna go ahead and put the eggs in there. And here are pans. I'm gonna make one pretty good sized pan and then some smaller pans for some of my relatives who I really love, and they're gonna take these home and eat these later. I could put these in here raw and put it in the freezer and they could take it out excuse me, later. Excuse me. Excuse me. But I'm gonna go ahead and cook these. I'm just not gonna cook them to death, basically, until it's very well done. I'm just gonna barely cook it off so that when they warm it up, it'll still be nice and creamy and not too dried out. And here are the desserts. This is the chocolate chess pie that Simone and I made earlier. It's ready to go, looking good. And here is the caramel cake as well that Simone and I made. We put the caramel icing on there, and so that's ready to go as well. So let's go ahead and get our dressing finished up, and the next step is just to put it in the oven. And I have eggs here, and these are double yolk eggs from my brother and my cousin who gets them in Alabama. Thank y'all so much. So you'll see it will be double yolk, 2 yolks. And that actually helps me to have to not use so many eggs. And how many eggs do I put in here? I don't know. I don't ever really count. You know, I guess you could count these as double eggs. So I guess you could say I'm putting 2, 4, 6 eggs in each. I don't know. I'm just not sure. It's up to you how many eggs. You put eggs in the cornbread, and now we put eggs in here, so it really doesn't matter. And you see how stiff this is to me? This is a little stiffer than I want it to be before I put it in the oven. I like for it to be looser than this. So at this point, if you find that your dressing is still a little stiff, before you put it in the oven, you can definitely add some broth. Remember I told you I made my homemade broth from hen, and hen makes the best broth. But you can also use canned broth if you have to. I try not to do it. I usually buy a few cans of broth just to supplement it in a situation like this. When I'm ready to put it in the oven and I feel as though it's still a little thick and I want to thin it out a little bit, I'll add a little bit more broth to it, which is what I'm going to do with this, okay? Alright, so here we go, getting our eggs in, and I'm just going to go ahead at this point and add just a little bit more of my canned broth, just to loosen it up a little bit. I like for mine to be a little looser so that when you cook it, it cooks up nice and is moist, because if it's too dry and you cook it a long time, it's going to be very dry to the taste. So that's why we do that. That's all there is to this. Okay, and that's about it, guys. And at this point, I hope you will have tasted your dressing, because you want to taste it to make sure it tastes good, it's seasoned good. And I remember I told you not to add any salt until this point, because you will have added cream of soup and different things that may have had salt in it. The broth could have had salt in it. I don't know what you're seasoning with, but wait until the end. Put all of your seasonings in, your sage and your poultry seasoning and your pepper, and then you add salt. I've already tasted mine, and it tastes just a little bit salty to me. Not too salty, but to the point where I don't need any more salt. So we're not going to add any more salt. We're just going to mix this stuff up, and we're going to put it in the oven. This is a workout. Ooh, my arm. So, okay, here we go. This is it. And I'm just pouring it in my silver pan, and I'm using these silver pans simply because I'm traveling and I don't want to clean up. And you see, this is is going to make quite a bit of dressing. That one small, and that's our small bowl. Small one. So we have a larger bowl here. So I suspect we're going to have quite a bit more dressing than we're going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling up our smaller bowls here. Our smaller containers with dressing for those people who are taking some home. And you don't have to fix dressing for people to take stuff home. Thanksgiving, food period. Thanksgiving should be a time of enjoyment, but people shouldn't work you to death and then expect to take a big, gigantic plate home too. That's a lot of work, you know? So, but if you want to do it, that's fine. You know, people like my dressing, so they've come to expect this. Okay. So, those are pretty much filled up, and we still have quite a bit more, probably enough for another pretty good sized pan. So as you can see, we made a lot of dressing, and I have another pan here, and I can probably make another whole pan of this dressing. I'm not going to put it in this pan simply because I don't want my dressing to be so thin, and I think if I put it in this pan, it's going to be pretty thin. So that's dressing 101. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you learned how to make a really, really good dressing. It's not hard to do. Like I said, didn't even use a recipe. I just put these things together. Just remember to use good cornbread and good broth. Make your broth from scratch. That's the best broth. From hen is the best, but use chicken, turkey, whatever you have, all right? And have a happy Thanksgiving and a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.